Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And we're so glad that you're back with us today. Today, we are talking about something very Christmassy, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Crimey Christmas.
That's right. A classic Seussian holiday tale turned classic holiday cartoon, as only 1966 could produce.
Oh, man, isn't that the truth?
I mean...
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be transparent here.
Do you not like the
It's
Grinch?
Terribly boring.
Oh, I love the Grinch. Maybe only because I watched it as a kid.
I don't know what it is about it, but it's just not near as exciting as Seuss's other stories to me.
Okay.
Because I feel like they harp.
Oh,
Yes, we get it.
okay.
We've sung a song about him. We've done the things. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Get on with it.
It's like it should have been like, instead of like a 23-minute short, they probably could have done a 5-minute short.
Oh, okay. Well, it takes about 12 minutes to read the book. So
That's good. I'll go with 12.
Okay. So the whole, to make it a half-hour special,
Yeah.
they added in those scenes with Max the dog.
Yes.
And coming down the mountain and going back up the mountain.
Right.
All of that stuff had to be kind of added in, and they added more stuff in to the...
Elongated the music a little bit.
Right.
The same song. Well, I was tired of that song.
Oh.
Oh, I was so tired of the song.
Oh, okay. See, and we saw a stage production of How the Grinch Stole Christmas a few years ago.
Yeah?
And that was delightful.
I bet.
It was so great.
I can imagine.
It was fun for the whole family.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. It was good. So let's talk about the cast real quick.
Yeah.
It's small.
Classic.
Yeah, classic. So Boris Karloff is the narrator.
And
And...
the Grinch.
Oh, yes, and the Grinch. Yes. He's the narrator, which is, if the Grinch has things that he says, Boris Karloff
Is also.
says them, yes. So he's got this really unmistakable voice. His work, he died 2-3 years after this came out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 1969, I think.
Oh.
And he had a couple things come out posthumously.
Okay.
But his earliest days in movies were like the earliest days in movies. 1919 is when he started his career.
So he was truly in the movies before they became the talkies.
Yes.
And then we just went back to the
Yes.
term movies because talkies feels weirder than movies, even though it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, talkie sounds weird until you realize it's a moving picture. It's a movie.
The movies because the pictures moved.
Yeah. But when you say the talkies, it sounds strange.
Right. Because to us, all movies are also talkies.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's just a weird term, but
Yes.
yeah.
He had a pinnacle of his career is a movie from 1941 called The Devil Commands.
Oh.
And it's just this very kind of spooky, hokey, but interesting, I don't know, very Boris Karloff sort of movie.
I feel like I need to go see this.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to go look this up.
I mean, you might really enjoy it. And then there's some names that we kind of recognize. So he was in 1936, a movie called The Walking Dead, which is kind of part Frankenstein, part zombie, where he's a piano player brought back from the dead.
Right.
And
Now, did that actually inspire the original comic?
I don't know.
That then became the...
I'm not sure, but I'm sure maybe a little.
Maybe a little.
At least the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the original Secret Life of Walter Mitty from 1947.
Oh, really?
He wasn't the main character in it, but he was in it.
Oh, I've never seen the original, but
No.
the one that we've seen with our Ben Stiller, freaking amazing.
Yeah. See, and I haven't seen that one. I need to watch it.
It's so good.
I mean, honestly, I think I might want to watch the 1947 version first because it looks really delightful. And I think I would be sad because it's, movies from that time period have a quality about them, and you have to understand there's going to be some overacting.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be, it's a different way of making movies than we make them now.
Right.
Where it feels like they know they're in a movie all the time in every movie.
Oh, yeah. Right. Because it was stage methods.
Right.
Adapted to...
Yes, to film.
To film. And so it took a while to change. It's not that I don't like movies from that era, but there was just a prevalence of film noir, and I don't like film noir.
Well, I mean, it just kind of comes with the whole black and white territory.
Yeah, and I think it's because we're too alike, because I'm a little pretentious, and I think those movies are a little pretentious, and so it's a little too much like home. Yeah. Like, you know how you don't get along with people who are too much like you? Yeah, it's that. Or the scent thing. You've mentioned the scent thing.
Oh, yes. So when you appreciate someone's natural odor, you're more genetically compatible with them. Right. So like, I could like eat my husband like a lollipop because he smells really good to me. Yeah. Whereas my son, who's much closer genetically to me, stinks.
Yeah.
And he stinks worse to me than to anybody else in the house.
Right. Because you're just too alike.
We're too closely genetically related to make effective offspring.
Which makes sense.
But because he is my offspring.
Right. So this is a way that like our evolutionary design sort of helps us to...
Right, to diversify our gene pool.
Right.
So that, he's too like me and therefore he smells.
Which would be the same concept if you met somebody who did have similar DNA to you in some ways.
Right. I wouldn't be attracted to them because they are... genetics were not compatible.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the thing. And that's funny. I like that. It's hilarious. But it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here. Yeah. Like, I don't like film noir. I think it's just a little
it smells too much like your own genetics. Yeah.
Like maybe if I was in that era, maybe I'd have been a movie star. I could have done it. I could overact in black and white.
Could you do the amount of drugs that are required for...
Absolutely not. I mean,
because that's the thing, is to be able to do those kinds of jobs. You could have done the dancing, but you couldn't have done the amount of...
Maybe that's the thing, is but I would have really enjoyed... But that's not so much the film noir side of it. I loved those old...
Oh, yeah, those like White Christmas.
Those numbers are just gorgeous. The choreography, all of the... I mean, it's just... Because dance is a far more established art.
Right.
By the time movies come around.
Right.
And so when they're on film, they already kind of know what they're doing.
Right.
Like really know what they're doing. Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Let's see. Then June Foray was Cindy Lou Who. She did voiceover work for 75 years.
Oh my goodness.
1930 till 2015.
Wow. Good for her.
Yes. And she had been doing an old lady voice since she was 12.
Oh my gosh.
Like, so if you watch the old cartoons with Tweety Bird in it, and there was the grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was her voice. She did Cindy Lou Who and she did the grandma.
Oh my
in like all of the
That is
Looney
a talent
Tunes.
I'm just amazed with. The whole voice thing.
Yeah, where you can do all the things. And then there was Thurl Ravenscroft, who sang You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, which you got tired of, and I never get tired of. But he was uncredited in the initial airing.
Why?
Because it was an oversight, and Dr. Seuss had to call him and apologize.
Oh my God.
And make sure that it was fixed, that he was in the credits in future airings, because people assumed that Boris Karloff did singing.
Oh, gosh.
And he did not. He did lots and lots of voiceover work as well.
Oh, so cool.
So a recap. Do we really need a recap?
I mean, do we need a recap?
Grumpy Hermit is annoyed by the joy of his neighbors and plans to steal their belongings so that they might be as unhappy as he is. When he finds that he can steal their things but not their joy, he has a change of heart and is welcomed into the community.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. I like it.
If you haven't seen this movie, this 26 minutes of a cartoon.
Or all of the remakes.
That's right. Yeah.
Jim Carrey, come on. That's fantastic.
I mean.
Now that's funny. That one.
And it does dig deeper into his story and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's something about the classic, smaller sort of show. It's a little easily digestible.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, okay, we're of an age where cartoons are made for potentially any age. Right. You might have a cartoon that's made for little kids, for elementary, for tween, teen, or adult, right? Like you can have cartoons that are X-rated, Really.
Yeah.
In that age, they were always geared towards children.
Right.
Really. And then if the parents watched, it was just because the children were watching.
Right.
So it's simpler. It's more of a lesson.
Right.
Right. Whereas, now.
Well, and it can be more overt with that lesson.
Yeah. It's just a little bit more of a, morals of the story is.
Right. It's got a rare 100% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
You're kidding.
Nope.
So I would be the curve buster on that?
You would be the curve buster on that. The Grinch almost didn't get made.
Really?
Yes, because, thank you, Mental Floss, for this information. So now studios and production companies fund these sorts of things themselves, right? So they make it, they fund it, and then while it airs, advertisements play.
Right.
Right. So, but that wasn't the way it worked when this was made. And that's why, like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was always associated with Montgomery Wards.
Yeah, okay,
because Montgomery Wards paid for
Right.
the production. So that was how all of these things had to happen. A Charlie Brown Christmas was sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Right.
They had to find a sponsor in order to get the funds to make it.
Okay.
And so they pitched it to dozens of sponsors. And nobody wanted to pay for it. And finally, they got the Foundation for Commercial Banks to fund it. They bit and said, yes, that we'll go ahead and fund it.
That's interesting.
It is interesting because they pitched it to them kind of like as a last resort and were shocked when they said yes, because there's a line that says, perhaps Christmas doesn't come from a store.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would think that the financial institution would encourage people to spend the money, but they didn't seem to be bothered by it, and nobody pointed it out to them, so they just took the money and ran. Speaking of which, it was extremely expensive, so it cost about $300,000 to produce it back then, which is about the equivalent of $2.2 million for this 26-minute cartoon adaptation, which is a lot of money. So there's this silly song where they're talking about all the things that he's taking from their houses, right? True to his persona's tongue-twisting trickery, Dr. Seuss mimics sounds of classical Latin in his nonsensical lyrics. After the special aired, viewers wrote to the network requesting translations of the song as they were convinced that the lyrics were, in fact, real Latin phrases.
You don't know it's a Dr. Seuss cartoon.
No, I know.
You've read the books, haven't you? Mm-hmm. That's very funny.
Yeah.
Then the people actually did that. That's a lot of effort. I mean, it's one thing today to be like, I think I'll send a DM.
Right.
Right? But that took effort and money.
Yeah.
Because you had to buy a stamp.
You had to buy a stamp, or you had to pay long distance to call.
Yeah. Or the paper itself.
Right.
You
had to get paper in an envelope.
Yeah.
You had to write it out with your fountain pen.
I mean, seriously. It's that's the original. That's the original, Karens and Chads to use the names.
Writing in.
Yeah, for this. That's it. Right there.
They weren't complaining. They just wanted a translation.
I know. But
I struggle with, are they Karens and Chads, or are they intellectually curious?
If they were, well, okay.
Because, maybe they wanted a translation, but that insinuates that perhaps they also wanted the original quote unquote Latin, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they're just intellectually curious and had no outlet like the internet to be able to go and look those things up.
No, but they did whole library.
This is true, but if you didn't understand all the words or know how they're spelled, it makes it more challenging to look it up.
And this song was added. It's not in the book.
No, it's not in the book.
So they don't have it written down somewhere.
Right.
Okay, maybe not.
So
maybe so. Maybe so. Okay.
I can get on board with the entitlement that they've got, that they deserve this translation. But I also,
it's just the effort. That's the thing that I think that stands out to me is the effort, the focus. Like that motivation escapes my understanding. But so maybe that's the problem. But no, you're right. You're right. I mean, why not? Why not write the producers and ask for something? I mean, they don't know there was an easier way to do that.
Right.
So for them, it's just the same thing as engaging with any radio show or sending
writing
in
it in
something
a
to
newspaper.
her to get like, more. Oh God, the term that was about to come out of my mouth was so bad.
Oh, tell me and I'll cut it out.
You might want to leave it in. I was thinking about sending in the points to get more diarrhea juice.
Diarrhea juice, like Kool-Aid?
No. It's the, the chocolate milk, like drinking.
Don't forget to drink your Ovaltine. Oh, no, but I was a big fan of the Kool-Aid points.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Kool-Aid points. And then there were these My Little Pony points.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of points. There's a Netflix documentary right now about the Pepsi plane.
Oh my God, it was fascinating.
So good.
It's like 3 episodes or something like that. And I'm like,
quick.
But it was so good.
It was so good.
I didn't know how it ended up either, because I was just like at that age where I didn't have the margin to pay attention, because I was in college when all of it was happening. And yeah, and I'm like rooting for him to get the plane.
Yeah, and I paid no attention because, I was in Georgia.
Yeah,
and so everything was Coca-Cola,
right.
and I just think the coverage wasn't as heavy there.
Well, and it wasn't, because most of what was happening was over on the West Coast.
Yeah, and so we just didn't get as much.
Right.
Of that. So
my family did drink a lot of Pepsi, but I don't remember Pepsi points, really.
No. I never participate in those things. I'm too lazy.
Okay. That makes sense that you would find it unreasonable that people would ask for a translation. There we go. I understand
We're
now.
learning a lot about Jackie today.
That's right, we are. So there was both a prequel and a sequel?
No.
Yes.
No, tell me.
So there was Halloween is Grinch Night?
No.
Yes. And the Grinch's the Cat in the Hat.
Oh Lord.
So they didn't become classics that air annually or more often now, but they were good enough to receive Emmy nominations.
Oh, good.
So
I'm sure it was fun at the time. Some things are perfectly fine to do, and it's for that era.
Right.
I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere.
I'm sure.
Which is, by the way, how I had to watch this.
Probably. Yes, that's how I watched it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the broken up.
Yes.
I was like, that's fine.
See, 5 minutes probably would have been enough.
All right, well, we're going to take a real quick break. We're going to be right back with Is It True? Spoiler alert, it is not. Psychology break and real life.
So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity, or something I never thought of.
So, is it true? No.
No.
But the origin of the word Grinch.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
hit me with that.
These first things all come from a Crime Reads article.
Oh, nice.
It's grouchy, which is French, which means grumpy.
Grouchy. That's perfect. I love French.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I think it's so pretty. That was the language I first took in high school.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And now we live in San Antonio, and I think still my French might be better than my Spanish.
Well, good, because my Spanish is about as good as my French, which is bad.
Oh, gosh.
So, but it is fun to be able to occasionally impress my husband with, I'll see a word that I know is French and know how to pronounce it. And he's like, ooh la la, fancy.
My favorite phrase is, je ne sais pas. It sounds so elegant. It means like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But
it feels to me as an American with no... I'm white. That's it. I'm Southern. Like,
right.
People, where's your ethnicity? Georgia. I'm from Georgia.
Right.
So French and Spanish, both romantic languages. Many things do overlap with English and each other, right? But je ne sais pas is such a beautiful way of saying I don't know.
Right.
Versus no sé.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what? Like, I don't even know what you said. So I don't know. I prefer the je ne sais pas.
Okay.
And the ne pas thing, the way that they make something negative is easier to me than the way that Spanish works. And it may just be because I started learning French younger than I started learning Spanish. And so it's harder to get it. But my name is Jacqueline.
Yeah, very French.
It is French. And my mom's name is Yvonne. And my name is Jacqueline Yvonne.
Okay.
Right? And so my mother had a kind of an affinity for
So it makes sense.
Francais.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that I might have the same affinity. Or we're just both pretentious.
Right. Which is also fine.
It's also fine.
They have an idea of maybe what the Grinch was actually wrong about. This is interesting.
Okay.
Ultimately, How the Grinch Stole Christmas is not about what the Grinch discovers about the Whos and their lack of materialism, but about the hypocrisy of those who insist on their own superiority over those around them. The Grinch, who is rather an okay boomer kind of subject, is actually not totally wrong about his concerns about what is happening in the world. He's just wrong to fervently, drastically, militantly conclude he's so right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I know. I was like, yes, that's right. He is an okay boomer.
He really is. Oh my gosh.
And then they also suggest he's a bit of a supremacist, perhaps even a domestic terrorist.
Ooh, dang.
A little bit.
Okay.
And it kind of goes back to that same kind of thing, that he's so sure that he's right about their behavior without actually knowing very much about who the Whos are or what their beliefs are. He just knows he's really irritated by them, and therefore they must be materialistic and wrong.
So I guess I never caught that. Okay, I'm having a
little epiphany
moment.
Yeah.
And maybe the epiphany in the form of a question.
Okay.
But I knew that he was annoyed. I knew that the lack of materialism was a thing. I thought the thing that won him over was the kindness and the acceptance, not the fact that he learned that they weren't materialistic. Oh. And so I never really connected the judgment that way. I always felt like he assumed he was the outcast without ever actually going forth and being the friend that he wanted. It's like when we tell people, if you want to have a good friend, be a good friend.
Okay.
And so that was the moral of the story that I saw. Had nothing. I know the materialism was there as a subplot.
Right.
I never connected to that. I always thought it was about you're actually isolating yourself because you feel entitled that they ought to do for you. And instead what happened was through his poor choices, they were able to finally, in a vicinity that he was in, accept him.
Okay. But he didn't get that acceptance until he returned all the stuff because he wasn't physically there. It was like they celebrated and found their joy despite the fact that all of their food and all of their trappings of the season were gone. They still had joy, and that's what warmed his heart.
Yeah, I guess I just never thought it was the lack of materialism, but it was the realization of community.
Right. And him suddenly wanting that.
Yeah. Like suddenly, or admitting that he wanted it. Right. Admitting that he wanted to be part of it, or finally resigning to the fact that it was okay that they all loved each other. And that the material stuff kind of just served as a straw man for him.
Right.
Right. Like that's how I always kind of saw it. I don't know. But I like their approach to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to think about that.
He was so ideologically set in his own ways that he couldn't see. Now, I guess in that, like the Jim Carrey movie, you get more of why he is the way he is.
Yes, that's true too.
You know, so it might change the story a bit. But for this one,
I can see now how the radicalization, the judgment, thinking they are a certain way, the stereotypes, really, quite frankly, the racism.
Right.
Right, and that's what he had to
deal with. Right. It's more apropos than we realized.
Yeah, I like that.
So, what crimes might they have charged the Grinch with?
Oh!
So, judges.org.
I love it. That's great.
Had a article about arraigning the Grinch. So they asked a bunch of judges, and some of them said up to 25 different charges. Nice. One said, none. We are only bound by the law, and we have no idea what conduct Whoville statutes, if any, proscribe or require.
That, you know what? I probably would have said that too.
I mean,
if really asked.
Right.
But assuming we're Americans and that he's an American and he lives under our law.
Yeah.
Let's see what he broke.
Yeah. So, intrusion upon seclusion and invasion of privacy because he was a peeping Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Animal cruelty.
Oh my God,
he was so mean to Max.
I mean,
poor Max.
So mean to that puppy.
I mean,
first to the triad.
Yes. Private nuisance and noise ordinance violations could have been taken against the Who's because they were noisy. Identity theft because he pretended to be Santa. Breaking and entering.
That's the most obvious one, I think.
Right. Larceny and probably grand larceny because based on the amount of things that he stole. Now, burglary is entering a home with intent to commit a crime, which he was doing. Robbery, which is a little different. That's stealing from an individual, which he did when he took the candy from the children while they were in their bed.
Yep.
Destruction of property. You assume some of the things that he eventually returned, were damaged. And then there are a few other things just real quickly. Reckless driving without a license, illegal dumping, indecent exposure because he wasn't wearing pants, improper lamp equipment on a vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
No seatbelt violation. And excessive decorations. I think those would be applied to a motor vehicle.
Yes.
And maybe not a sleigh.
Maybe
so
not
much.
a sleigh. Flying without a license. You can't be a pilot without a license.
There you go. And he did, he did become airborne at times.
At times. Yeah. At times.
I mean, he wasn't really in control of the situation, but he did become airborne. So the Grinch takes the stolen items up 10,000 feet to the top of Mount Crumpet.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like a lot. Is that a lot?
I mean, I don't know how he survived that except that he's not human.
Okay. Well, he's not.
But 10,000 feet is the breaking point.
Yeah.
At 10,000, you're good.
Okay.
Right above that, air gets really thin.
Yeah. Well, so I was like, it sounds high. Is it high? I don't know how high it is. So 14 highest mountains in the world are over 26,000 feet.
Right.
So like you got your Mount Everest.
Yes.
You know, most of these are in Himalayas.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, what is about 10,000 feet? Where could we find 10,000 feet? Lots of places, France, Wyoming in the U.S., South Africa, Canada, New Zealand, Italy, Antarctica, Japan. All of these places have 10,000 foot elevations for mountain peaks. In the U.S., Yellowstone National Park has a couple. Gray Peak and Mount Washburn are both about 10,000 feet. So I was like, so high.
It's high. Like, for reference, for me, like, I think of airplanes because I'm a very amateur hobbyist with my, airplanes are cool. But, like, if a jetliner was in trouble, like, and the masks come down, the first thing they do is they drop to 10,000.
Right, because that
you can breathe now. It doesn't have to be pressurized in order for you to breathe.
Right.
It might still feel thin, especially if you have issues with that. But
or if you're frightened.
Or taking in a lot, or maybe. But really, that's okay. Like the airplane doesn't have to be pressurized at that point, so they have enough oxygen on board. Then the thought is to get down to 10,000 feet, and then they can complete their flight to the closest airport.
Right.
So, so it's pretty high because a jetliner can fly that way without obviously running into a whole lot of terrain. Right. Generally. Yeah. But it's also pretty low because from there to the ground, that's pretty quick.
That is, it is pretty fast. Yeah.
Unless you're hiking it. Well, I don't know. I might fall down pretty fast. I'd go up
You
really
might.
slowly. I might.
All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. So, psychology break. There's plenty to talk about here.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. First of all, decorating for the holidays. It can be good for your mental health.
Yes, it can. As we've learned.
As we've learned.
As the before and after Thanksgiving crowds have protested and debated online incessantly.
That's right. And yes, and my family, we don't judge anybody about when they put up their Christmas decor. Do it whenever it brings you joy and happy. And if that means never, that's fine. Or if it means the weekend after Halloween, like we do, then that is
That's
also
awesome.
fine. But, this article came from November of 2020. So a lot of people had during a pandemic where we were spending a lot of time at home, a lot of people decided they were going to go ahead and decorate early. So there's, not specific research around this, but you can make hypotheses based on the research that is available. So like anticipation and nostalgia, and this is from Vital Records, Texas A&M Health. They can be distractions, good coping mechanisms for stressful times. In 2020, we had, a contentious election season. We had protests. We had pandemic. There was all of these big societal factors happening.
Yep.
In addition to whatever you had going on in your life, it was a lot of upheaval.
Yeah.
So if you have good memories of Christmas, then you have anticipation that Christmas will also be an exciting, fun, joyful time for you. And you have nostalgia where you look back on that and it helps you forget your current stress as a distraction. So if you can focus on the positive about that, then it can be helpful.
Yep.
Now, if you have bad experiences in the past, maybe don't.
Maybe don't.
Maybe if it doesn't bring, really, that's the whole thing.
That
if it doesn't bring you joy, don't decorate early thinking
Yeah.
it's going to make you happy. If it's just like all you have is bad memories of
Right.
Christmas.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So this article shows its age a little bit.
Okay.
Because it's from 2014 in
Okay.
Psychology Today. And the Grinch is a recluse. And Marty Nemko, PhD, suggests that if it might be worthy to consider a reclusive option if you're unhappy, that it might be okay to consider that. Now, we find after a pandemic and when we were forced into reclusive behavior, it's not right for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I'd probably have to, really dig into that because
It's going to be right for a few people. It's not going to be right for most people.
I mean, a recluse, the term itself is a little, not really diagnostic. It's really just a, description of the behavior kind of, but to think maybe was he agoraphobic?
Right.
What did he have these things? Maybe. And so, if you're having panic attacks, it's kind of like forcing yourself out there before you're ready, before you have the skills. I can see how choosing to be reclusive in a recuperation and a preparation, but not necessarily like I can understand being like, okay, let's not push too hard, or let's.
I really think that this guy is like saying if you're a jerk, maybe reclusiveness is right for you.
Oh, I'm on board.
So, yes, because he talks about how, waking up, you can get up on your own schedule. You can choose to be your own boss because you're not supporting other people. You can live more inexpensively. So maybe you don't need a lot of high-paying position because you're just supporting yourself.
This is funny.
And then you don't have to dress up. You don't have to have a commute. You don't have to, you're your own boss. You don't have to deal with a boss.
Okay, so right now I'm thinking of the movie As Good as It Gets.
Okay.
He was a jerk.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He lived alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
He should.
Yes.
But he became a better man.
Right. When he didn't live alone. Yes. People vary tremendously in materialism is what it says. So if you live by yourself, you don't have to argue with anybody about what you spend your money on. And you don't have to worry about sharing the television. You can watch what you want to watch or when.
Living alone and having a more, quote, introverted lifestyle that is not the same thing as reclusivity.
Oh, we're getting there.
Okay, get me there.
So, yeah. You can sleep how you like. They suggest that people who tend to be reclusive are thought of as being selfish. And he's saying perhaps maybe they're just treating others the way they want to be treated. They want to be left alone, so they're leaving others alone. He says, actually, a case can be made that spending little time with friends and family is generous. It is generous if you instead spend the time on things that would help humankind. This is what he's saying. And I really think what he's saying is if you're a jerk and you can't be nice to other people, consider being a recluse. Don't subject the world at large to your assholishness.
Okay, I like this.
That's
I like
kind of
that.
where I'm at with it.
I feel good about that.
Yep.
I feel really good about that, actually.
So what might be happening psychologically with this Grinch? Patrick Ward, PhD. Why did the Grinch steal Christmas? A psychological analysis.
Oh my goodness.
Perhaps he experienced mistreatment as a child. And when that happens, people tend to both blame themselves and blame others. They have poor self-esteem. They say, I don't deserve to have these intimate relationships with other people, but also people have denied me intimate relationships, and that tends to be a destructive pattern that they're in.
Yes, because as a child, you're not safe to actually blame the people responsible.
Right.
Because they're responsible for your well-being.
Right.
So you have to project that elsewhere.
Right. Exactly. He goes into a narcissistic rage because he feels like the Who's deserve his retribution, that they have made him feel bad about himself. Even though they haven't really done anything to him, they've just lived their life, and him not being a part of that life because he's living at the top of the mountain makes him feel bad about himself. But
yeah, I get that. I mean, like, really, I mean, them Who's were loud.
I mean, they're noisy.
But did he ask them?
Right. I mean, did he ever ask them to be quiet, or did he ever ask to like join in?
No.
Seems like no, because at the end, all they did was, will you please carve the roast beast?
Yeah.
I mean, like, they gave him not just a seat at the table, but a seat of honor at the table.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Really, what his epiphany was that the Who's were able to choose joy and happiness, and that perhaps he could also choose joy and happiness rather than trying to inflict pain upon them. When he was unable to do that, he learned he had a choice.
He did. But he also had a community.
Yes.
I mean, I'm all for, I'm always going to be a little bit with the positives.
Right. Yeah.
But here's my thing about that. Yes, you can choose the joy, but we can't ignore the fact that the Who's had each other.
Right.
So they didn't just choose joy. They leaned into a community of support, which research shows us is the number one thing that helps people through hard times.
Right.
So they didn't just choose to be happy in the midst of by himself. Grinch didn't just go to his mountain and be like, I'm going to choose happiness and joy.
Right.
No, he found support.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the mediating factor.
Right. He's like the rats and the cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know that study, right? Where they have the community of rats, and you give them interesting things to do and other rats to do things with. They ignore the cocaine. And if you give them no other rats and nothing to do, they'll cocaine themselves to death.
Yep.
Yeah. So it may not just be mental anguish that causes the Grinch to be Grinch.
Oh,
could
that's
be
true.
Physical as well. So Rocky Mountain Brain and Spine Institute, from a neuroscience perspective, looked at it, and they said it's pretty clear he's a sociopath.
Yeah, well.
I'm like, yes.
We did mention triad number 1, right? Like, we did
Right.
mention. Okay, all right.
Right, yeah. So, brain MRI studies comparing lonely and non-lonely people show that those with a sense of social isolation appear to have a reduced response to things that make most people happy and a heightened negative response to human conflict. You know, because he was lonely. He had a poor response or less margin for the noise that the Who's made.
Right.
Depressed people do have a higher tendency towards violent crime, though most depressed people do not commit violent crime. Right. But, you know, he had some physiological issues. He had heart issues. He probably had spine issues. His feet didn't feel good because the shoes were too small. And then probably some brain issues. Yeah. So one of the lines is his brain is full of spiders. I almost hate to say that word.
Terrible.
Yes. What it could actually refer to is there's a covering in the brain called the arachnoid layer. And it's under the dura, which is the thickest outside layer, and it is kind of delicate and looks like silky fibers, and it extends into and around the brain. So if you have a problem with the arachnoid layer, the Grinch may have, then it can form cysts and pressure on the brain, which can lead to a lot of different issues. So if you had large symptomatic and untreated arachnoid cysts may cause enough brain dysfunction to incite the Grinch's Whoville chaos.
Oh, well, there you go.
Perhaps the spiders in his brain was referring to a physical malady.
It could have been. Did he play football?
Maybe.
I don't know. Is the concussive syndrome at all related to this thing? I don't know. Because we've seen
recently.
Yeah. I'm a Pats fan, so I can talk about this. We've seen how this could happen.
That's right.
And then I'm also from Georgia. We've seen how this can be a problem. Unfortunately, it's only diagnosable once you're dead.
Right.
But I feel like we should start to see the signs and symptoms earlier.
I think
we've had a great display of it.
This is true.
So
yes. So
moving on.
Real life. Grinch behavior obviously is undesirable.
Yes.
So in 2021, Mesa Police Department in Arizona had Operation Grinch Stop, and where they made little silly videos about stopping the Grinch. And basically what it is lock your car.
Yeah. That's great. I love that.
Because that's really like...
Yeah. That's funny.
The long and short of it.
Yeah.
And then we have a few real life Grinches.
Ooh.
From 2018, NPR had an article about 3 different Grinches. Some of them are a little entertaining. So, Florida man.
Oh, Lord.
Florida man. Always Florida man. He took a Christmas wreath from a house because he liked it. And he drove 4 miles to his home and hung the Christmas wreath on his own door. He ended up turning himself in and was held on $10,500 bond.
Wow.
He could have bought his own freaking wreath.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was a $200 wreath.
He could have knocked on the door and been like, where'd you get this?
Can I buy this one?
Can I buy this one? I mean, really? People.
In Philadelphia, a family found that it was a great hiding spot to hide their children's presents in the car.
Oh.
Except that the car got stolen, as did all the gifts.
Oh.
Lock your car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Caldwell, Idaho, 2 men were arrested for running off with Christmas lights that were decorating a house in the city. And there were 2 men in their 20s who were captured after this, and they have no idea what their motive was. They have no idea why they stole all the lights off of this house.
I feel like something they told them to do it. maybe Saul Goodman was half off that day.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Exactly. Gosh. And the Grinch stole everything, right down to light bulbs.
Yeah.
as did a thief in Knoxville, Tennessee.
What? Really?
This was back in 2019. So a guy walked out and realized that his Christmas lights weren't on. And so he went to go figure out why his Christmas lights weren't on. And all the strings were still there. But the 100 light bulbs that were in the strings of his lights had been unscrewed.
Oh my God, that is so funny though.
Somebody stole just the bulbs.
That's a prank.
That is a prank.
That is a prank. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's a lot of effort.
It is a lot of effort. He must have been
so mad.
He must have been
a feeling somebody. I hope that resolved with maybe the Christmas lights bulbs returning.
Oh no, it did not. He pulled it out and threw the. He released a statement. Next time you want to steal them, just take out the whole thing.
But that's why it's got to be a prank.
Like, this is what I
imagine. Somebody did it, waiting for him to like lose his mind so that they could be like, gotcha. And then he started ripping them all off. And then they were like, oh crap.
Yeah. And then they're like, I guess we're going to throw these away. So the Grinch is 53.
Okay.
They mentioned that. Mm-hmm. What makes older adults so cranky?
Oh, man.
There's a care website that talks about this. So, they can complain constantly, be mad about noise. Mm-hmm. So it could be because of decreasing, particularly in men, which we gathered the Grinch is male.
Yes.
Decreasing testosterone levels can cause mood swings and depression and physical discomfort. And the Mayo Clinic says that after the age of 40, you lose about 1% of your testosterone level per year. Mm-hmm. So by the time you get to 53, you're a little crappier than you used to be. Both men and women experience these sorts of hormone fluctuations, but women tend to deal with menopause by crying and talking with people about their symptoms, and men just get angry.
Yeah,
because they haven't been taught coping.
That is kind of a cultural thing, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
With the mood swings,
right.
But because aggression takes a little certain amount of hormone,
right?
But that's where grumpy comes in. You're mad, but you're too lazy to do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's where that,
you're just annoyed by everything. Yes. So physical ailments and body aches can make you more uncomfortable.
That's what I was thinking about.
Right. It can be difficult to accept that the times have changed.
That one is a hard one for me.
Yeah, that things are different now than they used to be.
No, I mean, it's a hard one for me to have empathy for.
Oh, well.
The other way around. Yeah. I don't get that. Unless you stopped changing.
Right.
Early.
Yeah.
Because here's the problem. If you're just kind of keeping with life, it shouldn't feel like a complete shock to you that everything has changed.
Right.
So what have you been doing where all of a sudden you're like, everything's just changed? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm waiting for it in my own life.
Yeah.
When am I going to, I keep thinking, okay, in my 40s, better keep going. Like, I better make sure that I'm up with at least basic things, because I don't want to then in my 50s and 60s feel like I don't know, excommunicated myself from culture.
Like you got left behind by culture. And because you stopped participating in it. Yeah. That's really
and that's where it is. And how does that happen? Mm-hmm. Is it where does the focus go? How do you deal with a finite amount of attention that may be then taken up more by the aches and pains, by the hormone changes? And then how do you refocus your attention so that you can still be very engaged with everything? But the problem is a lot of people don't just feel left behind and then are delighted by all the stuff. They get angry and they're the Grinch and they blame them for being happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so it's very kind of like, yeah.
You might miss your loved ones. The older you get, the more likely you are to have loved ones who are no longer with you. So that can be difficult to deal with. Yes. So, and they handle it poorly, as the Grinch did. Maybe he wasn't very happy in his retirement home. He put himself at the top of a mountain. He wasn't very happy because...
Yeah. No, that's a lot of hassles.
Yeah.
He dealt with a lot of hassles. Hassles are not good.
That's right.
Do you know that the small little hassles per day that build up have as much or more effect on your general sense of well-being than a major crisis.
That makes so much sense to me because I had a bad week a couple weeks ago. And that was exactly it. It was the little things.
It was the little
like
things.
the big, huge crisis we had over the summer in my family, you know, much easier to deal with than the...
Because the crisis focuses your attention. You lean in, you look at a community, look at the who's.
Yeah.
Right? Like right. But with the little hassles, you're kind of alone in the struggle. Or you don't have the ability to fix it.
Right.
So you kind of feel powerless, loss of agency, right? Like there's just, and it builds. It builds. And so it does. It has almost more of an effect, as much or more of an effect on your general sense of well-being and stress level than a major crisis. So the biggest predictor of despair is actually a lifetime of small hassles, not a lifetime of large hassle or large crises.
Jeez.
And it's kind of funny because we tend to think about the big crises, but then we say things like when we talk about relationships and love and happiness, oh, it's just the little things. It's the little things that matter. You can't just be there for the big events. You have to be there day after day. And in the little things, you know what? The little things are what matters.
Right.
Good and bad.
Yeah. All right. And then the stockings that the Grinch stole were just like socks.
Yeah, they were literally stockings.
Like literally stockings. So I wanted to know what a little bit of the history was.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know, it's kind of an interesting thing that is good to end on.
Okay.
I think.
Tell me about this.
There's no definitive knowledge about where the idea of stockings came from. We have some stories, the most popular of which is that St. Nicholas was staying with a family, and it was a single father and his 3 daughters, and they were pretty destitute. And he, for some reason, stayed with this family overnight in their home and overheard that the family was going to have to put the daughters in a house of ill repute in order to make sure that they would be fed and not indigent, basically. That this was a very sad situation. So on his way out, stories vary. Either he put bags of gold that were hanging by the stockings by the fireplace to dry and put them in there so that they wouldn't have to live this undesirable life.
Okay.
It was not a choice that they were making for themselves. It was a last resort sort of situation. Or that as he left, he threw them in the window and one happened to fall into a stocking. And when they found the money, they no longer had to resort to that sort of lifestyle that they weren't interested in.
Well, that's a cute story.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. And then sometimes it's told with gold balls instead of bags of gold, which is kind of where the tradition of an orange came from. I always thought it was just because it filled in the toe of the stocking.
I've never heard anything about an orange.
Oh.
Okay, so for reference, we didn't do the stocking thing.
Oh.
Like at all.
Really?
Never.
Really?
Yeah, that wasn't a thing we did. The stockings.
Oh.
We did have, for us, we had a few stocking kind of decorations.
Okay.
And they hung. And the only thing that ever got anything was the pet ones, but we didn't.
Oh, okay.
And I think that even my mom growing up, they didn't do that tradition either. And I don't know if my dad did.
Okay.
So, so only as an adult have we started actually having a stocking for each person. And then only recently, really in years, have I started really making sure there's something in the stocking.
Really?
Which is why this year we actually hung them in a place that I'm not going to be able to put anything in them. We're just going to wrap a bunch of little stocking gifts.
Oh, okay.
Because they're in a different place this year.
Yeah.
So
we always take ours down. We hang ours up and we take them down and fill them, and then they sit on the ground with their fills.
That's smart, because I was thinking the command strips aren't going to hold.
Oh, no.
So,
no.
you take them down and then
we
you put them by the tree?
We take them down and fill them, and then we put them near the tree.
Oh, I see.
That was like Santa would come and fill them.
Yeah, okay. Oh, maybe so.
Yeah.
I mean, coal, I've heard of the whole thing about coal, but not an orange.
Yeah. Well, my mom used to get an orange in the toe of the stocking. She'd get my parents are older. So, you know, it was a big deal to get an orange or walnuts.
Oh, okay.
You know, that was like some of the things they got. My mom still gets chestnuts in her Christmas stocking because she loves them. But yes. So, yeah, but that's where the idea of orange in the toe came from, was that
it's a ball of gold.
A ball of gold.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Well, this is coming out just a couple days before Christmas, so we wish you a joyful and safe and fun and relaxing Christmas, or whatever holiday you might celebrate at this time of year. There are a number of holidays that happen here towards the end of the year. So if you've already celebrated, I hope it was great. If you have a celebration yet to come, we hope it's wonderful.
As NSYNC says, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So whatever, we celebrate Christmas, so we'll wish that to you, but whatever it is that you're celebrating, we're glad you spent a little time with us, and the run up to that, or the denouement of your Christmas activities. And we're going to have a couple episodes of outtakes, and we'll be back with you in the new year.
Can't wait for them outtakes, y'all. They're good.
They're very fun. All right. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands. Bum, bum, bum. Da, 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 da.